Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion, Chukat, opens with the most mysterious and enigmatic commandment in the entire Torah, the ritual of the Parah Adumah, or the red heifer. Even the wise King Solomon admitted that he could not understand it. So if he couldn't figure it out, why should I drain my cup? Therefore, instead of speaking about the Parah Adumah this evening of July 4th, I am going to speak instead about America. Who would have thunk? And most particularly, the Jewish influence in the founding of this great nation. Now, if you read the history books, they will tell you that the first Jew to come to America was named Barsimson. No, not Bart Simpson. Jacob Barsimson, who reached these shores on August 22nd, 1654, from his native Brazil. 4 months later, he was joined by 23 others who were also fleeing the Inquisition after the Portuguese ousted the more tolerant Dutch there. It was in Dutch New Amsterdam, however, that they encountered America's first recorded antisemite, Peter Stuyvesant, who tried to expel the Jews, seize their possessions, and bar them from public life. Now, the Jews had been granted permission to settle in New Amsterdam by the Dutch West India Company, so Stuyvesant penned an infamous letter to the company stating that he, quote, deemed it useful to require the Jews in a friendly way to depart. After the Jews appealed to the influential Jewish community of Holland, however, the company overruled Stuyvesant, allowing the Jews to settle so long as they didn't become, quote, a burden. So, not to be deterred, Stuyvesant barred the Jews from serving in the volunteer home guard and levied an onerous tax upon them to pay for their replacements. Enter Levy, one of the great heroes of American history whose name almost no one knows. He fought heroically for the right of Jews to serve in the militia, and after a 2-year legal battle, he won. He later became the first Jew to serve on a jury in North America, and also helped secure the right for Jews to own property and to practice a trade. And when he was granted a license to open the very first licensed Jewish business in the New World, a butcher shop, they even exempted him from the obligation to slaughter pigs. And so, this penniless refugee from Brazil rose to become arguably the first champion of civil rights in America. And yet, the only testament to his great accomplishments is a small park in the borough of Brooklyn. But was Jacob Barsimson really the first Jew to walk on these shores? No. Actually, the very first Jew in America was, anyone? Christopher Columbus. Now, those of you who know me well know that I never take any pleasure in being proved right. But in this case, I will remind you that in 1992, on the quincentenary of Columbus's voyage, I gave a sermon opining that Columbus was most likely a converso, a secret Jew. And now, in 2025, Spanish scientists have confirmed through DNA analysis that Columbus was indeed of Sephardic Jewish descent. So how did I know without the DNA? Well, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and Spain expelled all its Jews, which happened not only in the same year, but on the very same day. And we know from his journals that rather than letting his sailors cavort on shore the night before the journey, as was the norm, Columbus confined them to the ship's quarters. Why? Because he was protecting the Jews among them from arrest by the Inquisition. And how do we know that many of his crew were conversos, Jews? From the diary of Luis de Torres, the Hebrew scholar whom Columbus had recruited specifically to translate for him when they encountered, as Columbus believed they would, the 10 lost tribes of Israel. After an interminable sea voyage, de Torres writes, "We knew land was close because we saw willow branches floating on the sea. Delighted, we took up the willow branches and beat them on the ship's deck in celebration of the Jewish holiday of Hoshana Rabbah, which was that very day." So yes, Columbus and many of his crew members were Jews looking to escape oppression by going in search of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. How ironic that just at the point when the world admits that Columbus was Jewish, they also denigrate his legacy. As the Yiddish phrase goes, schwer zu sein a Yid. It's not easy being a Jew. In any case, whether you see Columbus as a hero or a villain, one thing is clear. Jews were an integral part of the American story from the very beginning. We did not just emigrate here in the 19th and 20th centuries, as many believe. No, we have contributed to the building of these United States from the outset. Indeed, I would argue that there would not even be a United States of America without the selfless contributions of Chaim Solomon. Born in Poland, Solomon was a brilliant financier who almost single-handedly raised the funds to support the Continental Army. He even converted his own wealth into bonds to keep the army fed, clothed, armed, and paid, and as a result, died penniless, having given everything for the dream of a free nation. Which brings us to the final Jewish American hero to be highlighted this evening, Emma Lazarus, whom you all know as the author of the New Colossus. But what you may not know is that she was also a passionate and effective voice for the rights of immigrants in our society. As a Sephardic Jew from a prominent New York family, Lazarus had the unique ability to bridge the worlds of America's elite and the struggles of marginalized immigrants. Indeed, the New Colossus was written to help raise funds for the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. And as a tribute to her contribution in 1903, 16 years after her death, the poem was inscribed on a bronze plaque in the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, welcoming new Americans ever since to these shores with the words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Now, according to homiletical norms, I really should conclude here by returning to the Torah portion, or perhaps with a reference to one of the many patriotic songs by great Jewish composers, like "God Bless America," which Irving Berlin wrote in 1918 while he was serving in the U.S. Army during World War I, thanks in no small measure to the pioneering work of Asser Levy before him. But, to be honest, it wasn't those lyrics which kept ringing in my ears while I was writing this sermon. Rather, it was these. "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea." Amen.